Hello everyone and welcome to Introduction to Essay Writing. Now in this lesson and these series of videos what we're going to go through is the entire process from the ground up of essay writing. So if you've never done it before, or if you're not really confident doing it, or you really need a lot of help with your essay writing, this is the series for you. And obviously we're going to be looking at a number of different ways that you can write an essay, okay? So it's, even if you're a beginner, even if you're someone who's done it a few times and just wants to brush up on the basics again, this is everything you need to know about essay writing from start to pretty much finish. Okay, so we're going to start this lesson with the essay writing structure. So what it is how you write an essay, how you set it all out. All right, and they sound tough if you haven't done them before, if you're doing them for the first time. Even if you have, they are the easiest way to write a long answer. So when you're expected to write a really long answer to something, essays are the best way to be able to do it because they are very easy to remember once you've done it a couple of times. It's a little bit difficult to remember at first, but once you've done it a few times, it's really, really easy. It's a way that you can set out all your ideas without going over yourself again or doing something that is going to make what you write confusing or hard to understand. Okay, so it's about making it really easy to understand. In this lesson, we're going to look at how to write one, and we're just going to look at how to write one first. So we're going to look at just the layout, okay, the set out. So how you start from the beginning all the way to the end. Alrighty? Okay, so this is the structure of an essay. We'll start off with the introduction. Now, your introduction is where you start your answer and you list what it is you're going to be writing about. So it's really just a quick list and description of what it is your essay is going to be about. So you're telling whoever's reading your work what is going to be in your essay, okay? Then the next thing is your body. Now, your body is really the ideas. If you're not sure what we mean by ideas here, ideas are all the answers or all the reasons that you've got that will help answer your question. All right, so you talk about them, you go into detail with them. And finally, your conclusion is where you rewrite, not the whole thing, but just your main points, what they are again, and then say why you've answered the question. We'll go into that a little bit more detail in a moment. We'll move on. Okay, so before we start, I want to just go through a couple of key terms because these are terms that we use when we're describing essay writing. The reason I go through these terms is you'll hear these words a lot being used. So it's a good idea to understand what these are. When someone explains to you what an essay is and what these three terms mean, then you have a bit of an understanding to start with. Okay, and we'll go through some examples of these in a moment. An argument. An argument is all of the main points that you're going to write about. So it's essentially what you're trying to answer in your essay. Your keywords are the most important parts of the question, all right? So they're words from the question. So for instance, if the question is, what is important about writing? And I'll get out of the way for a sec so you can see. What is important about writing? Those are probably your two keywords there, all right? You're going to be writing about what is important and obviously about writing as well. Those are your keywords, so they're the most important parts of the question. Yes, the what and the other parts of the question are important too, but those are the words you'll be trying to use a lot of. Your definition. Now, your definition is something that goes in your introduction, and it's a one-sentence summary of your whole essay. What that is something that gives, first of all, a very, very quick idea of what it is you're going to be writing about. So it's nice and clear. Straight away, I'm going to be writing about this. It gives a bit of information, a bit of detail, which even if the rest of your essay is a little bit confusing or doesn't quite get to the point, at least you've got that at the beginning to say what it is you're going to be writing about. So it makes it much easier for instance, if I was to mark your essay, that it's going to be much easier for me to understand what it is you're talking about. Okay? Okay, so let's start with your introduction. Now, your introduction requires you to follow these basic steps. For each of these steps, you need to write a new sentence. For every one of these steps you're about to see, what you need to do is, if you're writing your essay as you're going along, you need to start a new sentence for all these points. The first one is you rewrite the question using keywords. Okay, so that point I mentioned before about keywords, you need to also make sure that you do that in the opening. And rewriting the question essentially means that you are writing it in a way that's easy for you to then go further with it. All right, I'll explain what that means in a minute. You also need to include the name of a text and an author if you're writing about one. If you're not, then you need to just ignore that step. But if you are writing about a book, for instance, if you're writing about Lord of the Flies, so that's one thing you need to have at the start. You then write a one-sentence answer. So I mentioned that word definition before, and that's what this bit is. You rewrite the question and then you give a very simple answer to that question in your introduction. All right, it's like a thesis statement. You might hear that word being used for it as well, but it's a definition. That's what it is. It's you giving what you think the answer is in your own words. All right, and as I said, I'll give an example of this in a minute. You also, in your third step, need to list all of the main points of your argument. So what all your ideas are, what all your paragraphs are going to be about. We'll look at our example now. We've got a question here. Are pigs able to fly? Well, it's a bit of a silly question, but it's a question nonetheless. How do we answer this? How do we use our introduction to answer this question? To start with, we've got here our rewrite of the question. And you'll notice here that you've got those words highlighted. Now those words there are your keywords. So pigs and then unable, so we've used that keyword there of able, fly, okay, so they're all there. Yes, okay, this is a fairly simple question, but when you've got a more complicated question, when you've got lots of parts to it, you need to make sure that you can rewrite the question so it's much easier to write about it. You also then need to write your definition. They cannot fly because their bodies do not allow them to. So this here is our definition, which means our entire essay, our entire point will be on this argument because their bodies do not allow them to. So it's a simple one-sentence answer. If you were to write it as a one-sentence answer, you would say pigs are unable to fly, comma, because their bodies do not allow them to. All right, just makes it a nice clear opening and it makes it very, very clear from the beginning what you're talking about. Especially, as I said, if you've got something a little bit complicated and a little bit hard to explain. Finally, they are too heavy to float, they do not have wings or propellers, and they cannot control aircraft. All right, these here are your main points or your argument. Each of these points here are going to be the start of a new paragraph. So they're going to start at the beginning of a new paragraph. So that is our introduction. It's only 3 sentences. It can be, as I said, a bit longer if you've got a more complicated question. But if you've got a very simple question like this one, then it only needs to be roughly about 3 sentences. All right, and it's just something as simple as that. We'll move on to the body now. So once you've got your introduction done, you're up to the body stage. And the body stage is the most important part because it forms most of your answer. This is where you'll get most of your marks from. You won't get so many for your introduction and your conclusion. You obviously will help if they're very, very clear, but you'll get most of your marks here. And they follow this structure as you can see in the image here. So you've got 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, or ever many you have. We're going to number them in this case, and the reason why we're going to number them is because it makes it much easier to know what each of your points are. So this will be my first point, this will be my second point, and this will be my third point. They shouldn't all just carry on together. So if you've got 3 paragraphs that all say the same thing, you need to probably change something. It is the most important part of each essay you write this. And you need to really focus a lot of your attention here. In your body, you must argue all of your points and explain why they answer your question. This is the whole point of it. And this part here is something that particularly ones who do essay writing a lot can sometimes overlook. You need to explain why they answer the question. Each main point should be a new paragraph. You shouldn't just start at 1 and continue with 1 all the way down here. You should have at least a couple of points. Now, you don't always have to have 3. You can have more, you can have less, depending on the length of the essay and what it is you're writing about. But let's put it this way. You wouldn't have 1, you would have 2, you would have 3, you could have 4, you wouldn't have any more than 4. All right, any more than 4 main points, and you've got too many, you don't want to have any more than 4 or any less than 2. Now, each main point should be in a different paragraph. So we're going to go through the different parts of the body here, and this is how they should be set out. First of all, you have a topic sentence. And the meaning of a topic sentence is a very short sentence, well, not a very short, but it can be a short, simple type of sentence where you repeat one main point from your introduction. So we had, for instance, pigs are not able to float, so that would be my topic sentence. So we got there, pigs are not able to float. That is about a good length for a topic sentence. Yes, you can make it a bit longer if you've got a more difficult question, but otherwise, it's something really easy like that, okay? Your discussion. So then you've got to explain why that sentence I just wrote is correct, is right, and also give some reasons why. So explain why everything you've said there is correct. You then need to prove that in something called evidence, okay? So it's proof, which you can get from a text if you're writing about a story. You get from a quote, if you can find a quote, either from a story or from somewhere else, or from a fact. So something that is, you can prove that you've been able to find and that is true. All right, if you write about something that's not true, obviously your essay is not going to go quite as well. It should prove that your answer is right. And finally, we have something called a lead out. Now what that is it's where you finish up this paragraph and then start to move towards the next one. So you can either do that in a couple of ways. First of all, you can write a concluding sentence. So something that tidies everything up. And it should do that anyway. So it's just like a quick ending. Or you can try and introduce the next point. So think of it this way, you're trying to link 1 and 2 together. So if this is your first main idea, and then you've got one underneath it, you attach the first one to the second one. So it just flows a little bit better. So you think like a river, it doesn't just jump from one thing to the next, it just smooth flows, all right? So think of it like that. So our topic sentence, pigs are too heavy to float. Okay, we wrote that down before, but that's our example of a topic sentence here. Their large bodies and weight mean that they're not able to float, which is one way a creature can fly. To float, a pig would need to be lighter than air. So these are reasons why a pig can't float. They have large bodies, they're heavy, they're not able to float, which is one of the ways that a creature can fly. They need to be lighter than air, which a pig is not. So all of these reasons are a reason why pigs are too heavy to float. And then your evidence. Our evidence is the weight of a pig. An average pig weighs 200 kilograms, and because of this weight, it is not lighter than air. So there's something that proves it, and we've got here a fact, as in the average weight of a pig is about 200 kilograms. For this reason, a pig is unable to float and cannot fly. Okay, so we've got there from the beginning to the end, your paragraph. All right, and it starts off by explaining something. It then discusses the reasons why. It gives a bit of evidence and then finishes up by saying the reason why. All right, your conclusion is just a short summary of everything you've written in your body paragraphs. So it's a very quick summary. It should tie everything together. So everything should go together like so. As pigs are not able to float, they do not have wings and cannot control aircraft. They cannot get into the air and therefore they can't fly. So you're tying everything together. So in summary, your essay should have an introduction, a body and conclusion. That's your basic structure. And then your body paragraph should contain a topic sentence, discussion, evidence, and lead out to the next one. And that is it for the structure of essay writing. So until next time, I'll see you later.